Greetings, Blender users. I thought that I would hop on today and make a quick video about my favorite beginner Blender tutorials. These are basically tutorials that helped me get started and keep going in spite of everything with learning Blender. But yeah, so a lot of these tutorials are focused on low poly, which is what I do in Blender, but all of these will help you learn the fundamentals, basically. This starts with modeling and goes all the way through some animation, texture painting, a couple grease pencil tutorials, stuff like that. But yeah, this video is for folks like me who would love to start with Blender but do not have the attention span to focus on the donut for like 6 hours or whatever. So enjoy! Hope they help. The first tutorial that I like to send people when they're getting started with Blender is Ducky3D's low poly environment tutorial. This one, you create a complete scene in Blender and you'll create it with this stylized low poly look using the decimate modifier. You'll learn how to also generate a complete landscape using a free add-on that comes with Blender, and you'll also learn how to model these really cute little low poly pine trees and how to use a particle system to basically generate them around that landscape. Super easy. I think it's maybe 12 minutes long. It is really easy to follow as a beginner. I'm going to reference another Ducky3D tutorial in this video that I really like for animation. All of his stuff is really easy to follow. It's very accessible. I think it's broken down step by step. Great place to start. Another thing I like about this tutorial, especially as a first Blender tutorial, is that you will feel like you have really accomplished something, which is what I struggled with a lot of beginner Blender tutorials. Is there was so much, it's great to start by learning the fundamentals, but at the same time, for someone like me, I need to see the progress happening sometimes. And with a tutorial like this, where you make a complete scene, you really get that sense of accomplishment. So I think it's a great place to start. Here's what I made. You can see that I used a gradient for my sky instead of an HDRI like he uses in the tutorial. Just a stylistic choice, but yeah, have fun with this one. The second tutorial that I like to send people when they're getting started with Blender is Grant Abbitt's Low Poly Animals tutorial. This one is near and dear to my heart because it really got me started with low poly and how to model animals in a low poly style. I think the approach that Grant uses in this tutorial is really great for beginners. Basically what you'll do is bring a reference image that he will show you where to download and everything, but he'll show you how to arrange reference images in Blender and then use a plane that you can extrude to basically trace the silhouette of an animal, then extrude it and turn it into a low poly 3D model. This approach is super simple, very approachable for beginners. I use it all the time still. It's wonderful, and so is Grant. If I have a problem in Blender, I literally go to YouTube, type my problem, and then Grant Abbitt, and that will solve my problem, basically. I used this model for a little animated scene that I did with Blender, and then I've also 3D printed the model that I made using this tutorial a couple times. As you can see, he has been dropped. Both of them have been dropped many times and lost many parts of their bodies, but that's okay. But yeah, so Grant Abbitt is wonderful for beginner tutorials, intermediate, advanced, anything really. Check him out. These two tutorials are my grail low poly Blender modeling tutorials. Cherylynn Lima, or Lima, I'm so sorry, I'm not sure, is a wonderful character artist at Bungie and has these amazing low poly Blender modeling tutorials and time lapses that you can watch on YouTube. The first of the two is a 6-part series on modeling a low poly human in Blender. I remember it was a little bit fast-paced for me when I first got started, but I was also coming into it with zero knowledge of anything to do with 3D modeling. So, it depends on your experience level a little bit, but it was a little fast-paced for me. But even if it's something that you don't feel like you can follow along with quite yet, I highly recommend just watching it and trying to pick up a couple general principles of 3D modeling, low poly modeling, etc. All of it's really applicable, even if you don't feel like you can quite keep up with it yet. The second tutorial by this creator is a series called Modeling Arcanine. It's a really cute tutorial. It's a low poly Arcanine, basically, just like it sounds. This is unfortunately an incomplete tutorial series, but even then, I think there's like either an hour and a half of great content about how to low poly model a quadruped in Blender. Again, I don't know if I mentioned before that these tutorials are from a few years ago, so the interface looks a little bit different, but all of it is still 100% applicable to whatever you're doing in any version of Blender. Another one of my favorite Blender tutorial creators on YouTube is Intranetgirl. This tutorial is called Easy Chrome Text Animation with Blender 2.82 Eevee tutorial. It is exactly like what the title sounds like. You will create a piece of three-dimensional Chrome text and create this really cool, colorful, kind of like holographic animation effect. This tutorial is great. It's really well paced, and Intranetgirl just has a really conversational, approachable kind of personality in her videos that I really appreciate and makes learning Blender feel much less harrowing. But yeah, this is a great tutorial, and I recommend it because it's a good introduction to animation one, but other than that, I really feel like it kind of opened my eyes to how you can use 3D space really creatively to achieve different kinds of effects. And with that, we are back to another Ducky 3D tutorial. This is a 5-minute tutorial that'll teach you how to make a looping animation. It is called Blender 80s Style Sunset Animation Loop in Eevee Blender 2.8. This is a really beautiful, simple scene. It'll show you how to make this animation using the ocean modifier that comes in Blender, and yeah, it's just like, I think the easiest way to just get a cursory look at how animation works in Blender. The next tutorial on my list is by SouthernShotty. It is called Blender 3D Easy Low Poly Frog Character Rig. This is another animation tutorial. It's a little bit more sophisticated. It's not complicated at all. There's just some more steps to this one, and then it's a bit longer than the Ducky 3D tutorial. So this one will walk you through simple low poly modeling, UV unwrapping, and shape keys, which might sound like intimidating terms, but this tutorial breaks it down into super simple steps. And what I like about it is this is a great introduction to animation that really fits this low poly style that is taught in the other tutorials that I've mentioned in this video. Okay, this tutorial is my favorite low poly Blender tutorial right now. I watched it and it felt like everything that I'd been trying to create in Blender, I finally could. It is called 3D Painted Cactus Tutorial in Blender 2.93. It's by Polygon Runway. It's made by Yasmin, or @Lumchi on Instagram. She has these amazing 3D models that have this really cute kind of like hand painted, they almost look like cell shaded kind of style. Basically, this tutorial will start you with making a low poly model of a potted cactus, and you'll learn how to UV unwrap it so that you can texture paint it in Blender. And the great thing about this tutorial is that it has this really unique, adorable style of kind of hand-painted looking textures, which I think is wonderful. It's really upgraded my style in terms of low poly modeling, and these tutorials by Polygon Runway are just a pleasure to follow because they're so well orchestrated and broken down step by step. They don't assume that you already know things about Blender necessarily, but even if you have a lot of experience, they're still fun to follow because they're just that good and you will always learn something new. So enjoy, I love this one. And the last couple tutorials on my list are by Sophie Jantak, who is a wonderful illustrator and digital artist who has been making a lot of Blender tutorials about Grease Pencil. Grease Pencil is basically a tool that lets you draw in 3D using Blender. It's a wonderful tool, even if you don't have illustration experience or you're not a digital artist. Like I wasn't myself, I didn't have any drawing skills of any kind when I started Blender, but Grease Pencil is just such an interesting and versatile tool. I really recommend anyone look into it if you're interested in Blender because you can just create really unique style effects. So the first video I recommend is called Going Through All 20 Plus Versions of My 3D Painting Grease Pencil Animation. Basically, Sophie breaks down all of the work in progress files of this really beautiful three-dimensional painting that she created in Grease Pencil. It completely opened my mind up to what Grease Pencil can actually create in Blender. Prior to watching this one, I really only thought of it as a tool for two-dimensional animation in Blender, but there's so much more you can do with it. So highly recommend watching that one. And then if you are ready to start a tutorial for grease pencil, she has a great beginner video called Beginner Grease Pencil Tutorial 3D Bonsai Painting for Blender 2.9. Again, you can use this with any version of Blender. It is a wonderful starter tutorial for grease pencil. It's about an hour long, but it's broken up into chapters if you want to take it a little bit at a time, but you'll start with modeling a bonsai tree and go all the way through the process of painting a mesh with grease pencil. She uploads a lot of grease pencil tutorials pretty frequently, so highly recommend subscribing. I've learned a ton. And there you have it, folks. All of my favorite beginner Blender tutorials. They helped me stay motivated in learning Blender, and I hope that they help you too. If you enjoyed today's video, please let me know with a comment, and who knows, consider liking, subscribing, who knows, that's up to you. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all in the next one.